Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Laura and Allison chatting about adoption. Just as a refresher, Laura is an adoptive mom of two. I am an adoptee and an adoptive mom, and we are both children's book authors around the topic of adoption. We're going to use this clip to, Laura's going to talk with us about an adoption story. She's got a few since she has two different girls that are adopted. And then she also has inspiration around why her and her family decided to adopt.
Yes. We initially, I think I always had a little bit of hope for adoption on my heart, but I don't know if I would have ever landed here if I hadn't. So my husband and I were trying to get pregnant, and it was just kind of taking a while for us. And turned out that the doctor thought I was having miscarriages, but I kind of started to wonder, like, I don't think I'm having miscarriages. I don't think I've been pregnant. And turned out I had uterine cancer, which, it was a estrogen-based uterine cancer. I was a young woman for uterine cancer. Usually you get that later in life. And initially, after the diagnosis, a lot of my doctors they all knew I wanted to have a baby. So everyone's like, let's take you to the infertility specialist. Let's get, you can still have a baby. And I chose pretty early on that was not my route. I had already had a few inspirational moments with adoption. So I sort of knew pretty quickly that I wanted to move forward with just hysterectomy and just hopeful for adoption. And it took my husband a little bit longer, but I think, I'd love to share this really sweet story. So I had probably 3-4 years before my diagnosis, I was getting my master's degree and I was teaching. I think it was summer. So I was doing a practicum at the university near me. And maybe it was an early childhood, because this was like a little girl. And I had met this little girl, and she was one of the students. And I just was super, super connected with her. And her mom was an adoption advocate. And so she was always talking just very positive about her daughter's adoption and how she was helping her to, she was from Guatemala. So they were always doing today she's dressed like from Guatemala, she just was always talking about it. And me and this little girl had this bond, and I just loved her. And I was only with her maybe 2-3 weeks, and I move on. But that kind of planted a little seed in my heart. I just was like, I want to do that one day. So then years later, I'm diagnosed with cancer. I'm making the decision whether I, meet with this infertility specialist again, or I go forward with my hysterectomy. And I had this tiny window where I had a choice, because I didn't have a choice in the end. They were like, you have to get your uterus out. But I ran into the little girl and her mom at the Gap. And I think we had just left the actual appointment. And when you're diagnosed with cancer, it's just bad news, chest x-ray, bad news. You're just getting all this crazy news. Well, I had gone into the Gap, and my husband had left, and and it had been years by then. So the little girl was not a little girl anymore, but somehow I think I heard her name, and then I recognized her mom. And then I was sort of putting it together, and I somehow got at least one sentence out to say, I think I knew you when you were small, and did you go to such and such school? And the mom was like, yes. And I told her, that I was considering adoption. I didn't really tell her why or anything, but I went home, and that just helped solidify for sure. Like I want to move forward with adoption. We didn't know international. I mean, I didn't even know the choices at the time. It's just, I just knew I wanted to move forward. And so it took my husband a little bit longer. He was more concerned with like, let's not take part of your body out, if we don't have to. And, but that was just kind of like how I, in my heart, settled on adoption. And of course it was like a super long journey, but that because we didn't address it again for at least another year because I had to go through like cancer treatment and everything.
And can we just really quick point out the exciting part that you are cancer free, and how many years has it been now?
Yes. So on the 30th of this month, it will be 13 years.
Yay.
Yes, it'll be, that's the day I consider myself when they took my surgery day, there might still have been a cell or two, but yeah, it's super exciting. And I always like to remember too, because my daughter's birthday is September 11th. And so September 11th of 2009, I was sick, like really sick. It was my grandmother's birthday and I was laying in the bed. I was pretty sick. And I called her and I didn't want her to know. She was getting a little bit older. It was actually her last birthday. And I called her to tell her happy birthday, but I was sort of trying to sit up and pretend I wasn't sick. And we didn't know what I was sick with yet, but I just wasn't able to like get up out of the bed and stuff. And so I had remembered that September 11th. And then the following year, a year later, on maybe like the 15th or 16th of September, I had, we went and took our profile pictures for our adoption profile. And it's so crazy because all the things that happened in that year. And that was September of 2010. So we have these pictures that kind of pop up on Facebook memories. And then 2011, we took newborn pictures almost a year later. And so it's just like, I just think of all of the like doubt and all of the crazy, like it just was 2009 was a really, really rough year. And 2010 was too, because you're doing the profile, you're, getting the pictures was the fun part, but you're doing all the other stuff. And then we have a newborn, another year later. So, that's always one of those things that people who are hopeful, adoptive parents, and adoptees to know like how much wanted in that year. But yeah, that was part of our journey anyway.
Well, that is so cool. Thank you for feeling comfortable sharing that with us.
Of course.
All right. Bye everyone. We'll see you soon.